There's no technical issues with this one, so.
Good.
What do you do
Okay.
when you're not doing this?
I'm
Okay.
with the local firm.
It's on.
No business with you.
We're on mute.
And I mean, it was. He said that he was still coming down to LA someday.
Okay, so we're getting some. Let me go into
But
that.
it was cool. I also think that I don't remember the guy's name at all, but I remember when I took the California bar, the person sitting next to me was a Fresno lawyer, and he was like, he was going to do something agriculture.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I do. Like I grew up in the valley, so it only makes sense. You know, my family farms up there, so it made sense to me.
I saw there were all these stories. I feel like there are giant stories in California about water use rights that are so impactful, but that I don't really understand. I remember driving across this.
Can we hold the microphone? Can you tell me if they can hear us in there if I talk? Yeah. Oh, is Meredith?
This room will have plenty of extra chairs, right?
Yeah, we'd like to have all the governors ideally, I think. In the
Yeah,
same
so I think
room.
we'll put, are we running out?
I
in
think
there?
we need like two more chairs.
Okay, yeah.
I'll grab them.
So we need to-
I think this would be it.
I don't think they can hear you.
You don't?
I don't think so. It's pretty loud in there though, so.
They're just that room. Yep.
He's definitely more of a studio guy.
So I just unmuted, and as soon as people join, they'll start.
Not yet. He said it's fantastic.
It's really,
How's the committee work going along?
because I've read the book and the book is kind of sour.
So parents got a seat at
And
the
the
table,
Swedish
but it's the
version.
corner.
Because they did a Swedish.
It's good.
Well, I'm just
Was
thinking, so
pretty.
you can
I
see
think let's
everybody.
swap.
You want to trade? I'm happy to give you this seat if you want it.
I was gonna say, I'd love to sit on the couch.
It's good. It's
Comfortable.
good.
We were talking about.
I guess I maybe need
things
to
in
plug in.
house.
Anyone needs pens, they're fine.
I always know.
I'm trying to think. Did he say you do?
The Wi-Fi
Definitely
password
don't
is?
log into the meeting though, because something happened downstairs
That's
where
fair.
like 20 minutes in, that meeting started. and I wanna
Log
make
into
sure.
the meeting?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, I heard.
I know,
Do-
but something happened.
Do you know what the Wi-Fi is? then?
Yes,
It's over
Wow.
there.
It
I
says
moved
call.
it does call.
It says call 7777.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, please do.
No,
Yes,
it's,
share with everyone.
Moon Madness with capital M's,
Okay.
2023 exclamation point.
Moon method.
Who came up
I
with
was-
that?
I was a
Changes every
fundraiser
month,
with
so-
interns or something.
Might be being
Yeah, yeah.
Read that one.
Where they got a law clerk.
Yeah,
Astrology.
Okay, everyone's getting on.
was-
Okay, we'll get started in a minute, because I know some people have flights, so I want to be conscious of time. I'll use Charles. Can you hear us okay? Okay, great. All right, LeJean. Okay.
Hey, Charles.
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and get going if we're good. So we're starting right at 1:29, so we're a little early here. But thank you everyone for joining our Board of Governors meeting for February 3rd, 2023 or February 4th. And so I wanted to get started with approval of our September 17th, 2022 minutes. They were emailed to everyone, I believe, on Tuesday. So if you've had a chance to look at them, just let us know if you have any potential corrections or any proposed edits. And if not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes. Okay, so moved in second that we approve the minutes from September 17th. And so motion carries and we'll proceed. So I'll do my president's report and keep it somewhat brief because we have a really great panel today and I'm going to hear from a lot of our staff. But first and foremost, I want to thank two of our governors who have shown such great hospitality this weekend. So John Davidi and Natalie Alamadine, we really want to thank you. We had a wonderful happy hour last night in Brentwood, and of course, Blank Rome is hosting our meetings all day today. So we know that's a lot of time and financial support as well. So I just wanted to show my appreciation to you for that. And also, I'm Angelino, so welcome everyone to LA. I hope you're enjoying the weather and enjoying the hospitality. And I know a lot of you did travel, which is I'm mindful of your time, so I'll try not to keep you beyond 3:30, but for all of you who did travel to Los Angeles, we appreciate your time as well and your financial commitment to the Board of Governors. So a couple of highlights from my report, it is in the packet, but just wanted to also highlight the committees have done a lot of work. Because we have a great panel today, we are not having every committee do an individual presentation except for one, because of a time sensitive nature of that presentation. But for everyone else, they've been working hard, doing a lot with engaging with not just our alumni throughout the country, which when you look at the reports and you speak to our committee members, you'll find out that we've been doing a lot to engage alumni throughout California, but also in New York and DC and other areas. So I appreciate all of you for that work, for taking your time to organize those events. And then also for a couple of our committees who've done a lot of work with our student population as well, and coming up with different ways to engage students. I've heard some of you this weekend express an interest in being mentors. So if you look at the committee reports, there are some efforts underway now to get more mentors engaged with our student population. So look at that, speak to our committee chairman, and they can help you get plugged into some of our students. And you've heard a lot about Graduate, but it's just one thing that Hannah mentioned on another call this week that I want to highlight is that if you do register on the online alumni portal called Graduate. It's a way for the students to directly connect with you. So as I understand from Hannah, who explained it well in another call this week, the students are actually doing searches or looking for people who are working in areas of interest, and they have reached out to alumni through that online portal. So there's different ways to connect with students the way that they like to be, they're how they engage people these days. And so that online portal seems to be a successful way for students to engage with alumni. So if you haven't registered, I encourage you to register on that portal as well. So one other logistical thing I wanted to highlight is our June meeting. I know that we've had 2 hybrid meetings, and for everyone, there's been some travel involved. And so I'm recommending that we have a fully virtual meeting in June, which I believe for a lot of you that works well. I know some of you are also traveling from LA to go to Spring Week in April. And so I want to be mindful of that as well. So unless there's any, if you have any questions around that, please feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss it. But for right now, the June meeting will very likely be a fully virtual meeting. And I think that'd be helpful for a lot of our alumni who are also on the governors who are doing great things all over the country. And it's very challenging for them to commit to traveling across the country. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Chancellor and Dean Fagman for his Dean report.
Great, thanks, Barbara. So first of all, as always, we are incredibly grateful for all the work that the governors do on behalf of our students and working with other alumni. So really are just so deeply appreciative of all your time, efforts, and financial support. So just again, extolling the greatness of our curriculum. We have a very broad, deep curriculum that really is intended to create a big tent with the idea that we are training excellent advocates, and those excellent advocates are representing plaintiffs, they represent defense, they represent as public defenders, they represent as district attorneys, they work in for-profit, nonprofit, every area. And so I am absolutely dedicated to the idea that all of our curriculum, all of our offerings should be as broad and as deep as possible. I think a nice illustration of that, if you look at our centers, both our historic centers like Work-Life Law, the Center for Gender Refugee Studies, the consortium with UCSF, and then some of our newer centers, the Business Law Center, Tax Law Center, Indigenous Law Center, the Center for Racial and Economic Justice, really a very broad application of what we do as lawyers. And we'll continue to pursue that principle. And then we also have great externships across the Bay Area, not only in judges' chambers and not only in public interest, public service locations, but also increasingly in private general counsel offices. So in-house counsel provide great externship possibility. I know you all are interested in the name change issue. It certainly has occupied a great deal of my time over the last arguably 5 years now, and even more so over the last year. Just quick background, as I mentioned earlier today to the trustees, I opened this can of worms back in 2017. And I think it was the right thing to do. It was the moral high road to look into our founder's past, and the fact that he had supported militias back in the 1850s was something that I think as an institution we needed to confront. I think that we worked very well with the Indian tribes around Valley, as well as the Yuki people and the Yuki committee. And then, of course, with the New York Times article in November 2020, that brought the question then was raised, why aren't we not, nobody had really asked specifically, why are we not changing the name? And then that became everything that everybody was asking, including California legislators. And so the board of directors asked me to work with the California legislature to change the name of the school, and then eventually to change the name of the school to the University of California College of the Law at San Francisco. We did all that. It became AB 1936, which the legislature passed in August 2022. The governor signed the bill at the end of September 2022. And then on October 4th, we got sued by a group of descendants of Serenus Hastings and a small group of our alumni that are under an umbrella called an unincorporated corporation, which is, I don't know what law school they went to, these so-called alumni, but apparently they're hiding behind a corporate veil that doesn't really exist. I leave that to other lawyers to worry about. But in any case, it's a small group of alumni that have a particularly difficult time. Their main argument, well, two main arguments. One is that Serenus Hastings wasn't such a bad guy after all, which is not a great argument to make, I don't think, given the historical record. And the other is that Serenus Hastings formed a contract with the state of California, and that this is a breach of contract, and that they're looking for specific performance to turn the name back, essentially, or for damages. The alumni don't get any damages. The descendants, who may or may not be heirs, which is a separate question. As I often say, this would be a really interesting litigation to watch if I wasn't a defendant in suit. So it's a little less fun because of that. So subsequent to their filing of the complaint, we filed an anti-SLAPP motion in November, claiming that they were interfering with my individual, because under anti-SLAPP you have to argue your constitutional rights as an individual. They may or may not have made a mistake by suing me in my individual capacity within my official capacity, as well as all the directors, and that gave anti-SLAPP the opportunity. And so the claim is that they were interfering with free speech rights and our right to petition government, both of which were presented. They are represented principally by Harmeet Dillon. For those of you who don't know Harmeet Dillon, she's a close friend of our former president and had run for the chair of the RNC. I think she lost that battle, so she's on to other battles, including against UC Law San Francisco. The week after we filed the anti-SLAPP, they filed a motion for preliminary injunction to stop the state and stop us from changing the name on January 1st, when the statute AB 1936 would go into effect. The motions court of the San Francisco Superior Court heard both motions the last week of December, denied our anti-SLAPP motion and denied their motion for preliminary injunction. Both parties appealed. Since then, the plaintiffs have dropped their appeal on the preliminary injunction, so that is done as far as this litigation is concerned. We continue to appeal the anti-SLAPP. Just 2 days ago, we heard that the Intermediate Appellate Court has granted expedited review of that appeal. And so we have a very short briefing schedule. I think it's all done by the middle of March, maybe. I have to go back and look at that, but it'll happen very quickly. If we win the anti-SLAPP, we would anticipate that they would appeal that to the California Supreme Court, but obviously we feel pretty good about our chances there. If we lose the anti-SLAPP, whether we would appeal or not remains to be seen, but then it would go back to the trial. And so the trial on whether there's a breach of contract would be obviously a separate issue. From the college's perspective, we have very little exposure because of that, because it's very unlikely, given that the trial court or the motions court basically found that they were not going to win on a contractual basis, that they're almost certainly not going to win on a specific performance theory. And that's the only thing we would be worrying about. If there are any damages to be had, and likely the extent of the damages would be about $100,000, because the way the statute reads is that the $100,000 would be paid back to the heirs of Serenus Hastings with unexpended interest, but there is no unexpended interest. The state has been supporting the college for 144 years at much greater than 7% rate. And so the most I think the state would have to pay back is $100,000, even assuming that there was a contract in the first place, which the motions court, Judge Holman, found was not the case. He says not a contract, it's a statute, and the legislature has the power to change it. So stay tuned. It will continue. I joke, many of you heard me say that when I finish being dean, I'm going to write a screenplay about being a dean. So watch for it on Netflix. So season 3 ended with the legislation. Season 4 begins with the litigation, and we'll see what season 5 brings.
Is that where Leo Martinez comes in?
And that's where Leo Martinez comes in to save me, wearing a cape and a
There's
scarf. Yeah.
cross-examination of the witnesses.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the name change.
I had a question
Yeah.
about the anti-slap motion. Does it
Yeah.
also extend to the board of directors who were individually named as well?
Yes. So the state is not a party, exactly right. The state is not a party to the anti-SLAPP, but all the directors are named in their individual capacity, and I was named in my individual capacity. Any other questions?
What's the timeline to switch over completely, like the emails and the addresses?
So good question. We have just hired a firm that's going to handle the switchover of the email addresses. All your email addresses will work for quite a while, so they'll be forwarded to the new one. We already have retained that we did actually almost a year and a half, 2 years ago, just in case things went this way. So we have uclawsf.edu already reserved for us. So we will be turning to your name at uclawsf.edu. And then all the websites, all the URLs, everything else will be switched over. The plan is it became official on January 1st. We've already taken Hastings off of several buildings. We have not yet received the funds from the state to fully put the new name on the building. Governor Newsom, we asked for it in the governor's budget. The governor turned us down on that issue. He gave us a couple of other of our asks. We are told that the governor's position is that this is a legislative initiative and that the legislature has to put it in the budget, and he will not veto it, but he's not going to lead on that issue. So we will be going to the legislature. I do appear before both the Senate and Assembly budget committees. Phil Ting, who's a good friend of the school, local to San Francisco. He is the chair of the Assembly Budget Committee. We've been talking to Assemblymember Ramos, who really drafted the bill in the first place, with a good deal of help from others. And we also have other good friends in Umberg. Senator Umberg is a graduate of our fine institution. He's indicated that he would support us. And so we're quietly optimistic that things will work out. On the money side, we did receive $885,000 to handle the digital changeover, but the physical changeover, and then just getting the word out. Our plan is to make sure that the legal field knows about it, the academic field knows about it, and we have a great reputation. UC Hastings Law has 144 years of greatness, incredible graduates, many of which are sitting in this room, and many others, including one sitting in the White House. And so we need to make sure that folks understand that UC Law is associated with UC Hastings Law, and that we get the benefit of that as we move forward to a new chapter in our history. Other issue that I'm sure you're not that interested in, and I'm not interested in, but I still talk about is U.S. News. So U.S. News is about, I'm about as happy with U.S. News as I am with California Bar. So U.S. News, of course, we decided not to participate in their survey. Just give you a little bit of background. U.S. News sends out surveys to faculty, to deans, to rate other schools, and then U.S. News also sends out to lawyers and judges and get those rankings or ratings. And then they also ask the institutions to provide information. A lot of that information is not otherwise publicly disclosed. We would disclose it because we're a public institution, but things like resources expended, which has always been a category that's helped us because we're building new buildings, and like the $55 million for the Kuchet Wall Center, the $362 million that we're spending for the new 198 building. Those are all resources that we're expending for our students. That will not be counted this year. So all the University of California law schools have joined this boycott of providing information. What it doesn't mean is it doesn't mean that we're not going to be ranked. There's still going to be rankings in March. We're going to get some sort of rankings. US News has announced that they're only going to use publicly disclosed data. We assume that the publicly disclosed data that they'll be using will be scraped from the ABA website, because we have to report LSAT, GPA, and lots of other information to the ABA as part of our accreditation requirements. US News has indicated that those schools that do participate in the survey and providing institutional data, that they would do something for them as some other, information resource for prospective students. Have no idea what that might look like. Our plan is we'll take whatever rankings they give us, which I still think is, excuse my French, but complete bullshit. But we will have a website that really touts what we are proud of, why coming to UC Law in San Francisco makes a lot of sense for many students, but not all students. The ranking system is inherently flawed. The idea that we are ranked against the University of Alabama, I asked June Sakamoto to check. We have not had one applicant that applied both to the University of Alabama and to UC Law San Francisco. Why are we being compared to them? Why do prospective students care about that? If you're interested in being in California, you wouldn't go to Alabama. And if you're interested in being in Atlanta, you wouldn't necessarily come to UC Law, even though you could do that and you could go to Alabama and end up in California, but it's a harder road. And so if you're really going to help prospective students, you should provide information that actually is accurate and relevant to the decision-making that they make. Just give a quick example of that. I got a call when I was directing the consortium from a student deciding between Emory and then Hastings Law. And I said, what do you want to do? And he said, he wants to do health law. And I said, well, where? And he said, well, I really want to be in California. And I said, well, why would you go to Emory if you could be at a similarly ranked school? And he said, well, you guys are ranked 42, whatever it was back then, and they're ranked 35. I said, you're really thinking that there's a difference between 35 and 42? Nobody knows what Emory Law School is in California, and you would have trouble getting a job in Atlanta coming from UC Hastings Law. And he ended up coming to San Francisco based on that. But again, the idea that people would think there's really a difference between a school ranked 42 and a school ranked 35 is just absurd. And that's the fiction that US News keeps perpetuating. On other, I think, sunnier topics, we continue to develop great partnerships with different campuses. UCSF, of course, is our primary cornerstone partnership. It has grown tremendously. I'm very proud to have been the inaugural director of the consortium, but I can take very little credit for its incredible success today. Jamie King, of course, brought it to new levels. Sarah Hooper today is the executive director and has just done fantastic things. Just to give you one example of a wonderful partnership, we were part of a $10 million grant from the state of California that was given to UC Law San Francisco, UCSF, and UCLA, their School of Education, to basically bring bench neuroscience and behavioral science to reforms in policy and reforms in education for early learning literacy programs, basically, neurodiverse learners and literacy challenges, looking at the behavioral and neuroscience and asking what it provides in terms of insights that might reform legislation, but might also reform education and educational initiatives. And so we received 3.5 million of that 10 million. UCSF got 3.5 million, and UCLA got 3 million. And it's just been really a great partnership. But it really illustrates what Sacramento cares about, which is this intercampus collaboration. And we really are leading in that way and have been leading on that for quite a while. We, of course, also still have UC Davis's Graduate School of Management on our campus. They run a Masters of Science program in business analytics. It doesn't have a lot of overlap with our students. I joked earlier that our students don't have great math capabilities. As many of us know, you go to law school if you're really good in history or Russian literature. Law school is a nice opportunity for you. If you're really good in math and statistics or biology or chemistry, then there are other things that you might do with that degree. So, but again, it's nice to have some math sophisticated people on campus as well. And then we are working with other UC campuses. Some of them are in very early stages, but one of my approaches to this vision of the academic village is to find ways to collaborate, especially with University of California campuses that don't have a law school. We are very nimble. We can move very quickly to create opportunities. And there are schools like San Diego, Santa Barbara, and others that don't have a law school that do a lot of law and policy, and there are just opportunities there. So we're in those conversations. We also have a great program with Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, 3+3 program where they do 3 years there and then 3 years at Hastings to get both degrees. So they save a year of tuition, which is a great benefit. I am just starting to look into a new way of doing a 3+3 program. We also have a great 3+3 program with Spelman College, one of the great HBCUs. And we're going to be talking, I'm going to be out in Atlanta in April, going up to Hampton in Virginia, and then to Howard up in DC, and talking about the possibility of creating 3+1+3 programs, because the great challenge of a 3+3 program is the students are very young when they get to law school, because they're just 3 years into their undergraduate, and they've struggled a little bit really acclimating to the law school. And so the idea is to offer 3 years undergraduate, 1 year in San Francisco, possibly working in the general counsel's office or somewhere in the tech corporate world. They would do an internship. They could live on our campus. We have great housing opportunities. They could be part of the community. They could be part of the programming. If we have invited speakers, they would come see the invited speakers. And then they would come to law school with a little bit more maturity. I think for the tech business community, it's a great opportunity because it's a pipeline, especially the HBCUs, to really help diversify a profession that needs diversification. So it's something that we really would like to build up. And then, as many of you know, we are working very hard and in some interesting early conversations to bring a major business school to be part of the academic village, and we're moving along in that regard pretty well. Also want to give you a quick update on the bar exam. It was a little disappointing this year. We had 3 years where we were well over 80%, and 3 years ago it was 87%. And so it's something that we really care about, and I have said, and I ought to be judged by our ability to make sure that our students both get licensed by passing the bar exam, but also are able to start their careers and are on their way in terms of their jobs. The entire state went down. Probably this was a big COVID class, so a couple of years were done virtually. So they were doing take-home exams rather than in-class exams, and then the bar exam was, in person, and therefore is closed book. And they had not necessarily had closed book exams for a couple of years of law school. So what we found, the overall pass rate for the ABA was about 75%. We were about 73%, so we're just below the ABA average. Not happy about that at all. When we do have a statistician that looks at what are the factors that are associated with the students that are not succeeding on the bar exam. And we found that the students that were the most vulnerable through COVID, and I'm very proud of the re-up program. I'm very proud that we take some chances and giving opportunity to people that have overcome disadvantage. But a lot of those students had a really hard time during COVID. They had family situations that didn't lend themselves to either sitting in on Zoom classes. They might have kids and other things. And so it was actually that group that seemed to be most challenged. We are working on that. We're going to create programming to give them support not only through the 3 years of law school, but try to up the support after they graduate as they study for the bar exam. But again, I am a believer in providing, the good news when it's there, and when the bad news is there, we need to correct it. It's not terrible news. It's nothing like 2016 where we had a 51% bar passage rate. So that's still my nightmare. And we have done a lot to improve that. We were up over 80% for 3 years in a row, and we'll get back there again. And again, I will take very little credit I'm happy to take the blame, but I'll take very little credit for really the initiative in this regard. Morris Ratner and his group, Margaret Greer, Stefano Moscato, folks like that. They're the ones who are really on the ground, and Margaret, in particular, Margaret Greer, just doing fantastic work. So, I think our students are really supported, but you can only do so much if they're not finishing their bar studies, and they really need to be encouraged to really apply themselves. And this generation, I heard at least that several students were like, well, I even if I didn't pass the first time, I'll pass the second time. When I took the bar exam, the prospect of failing the bar exam was like my worst nightmare. And there are a number of students, and again, it could be a generational thing, that they're like, well, if I don't pass the first time, it's not the end of the world. But it can be not the end of the world, but it ends up being quite challenging. Not every law firm is that accommodating or understanding, and it's the kind of thing that we want you to pass, and there's no reason why you should have to go through it all a second time. So we're certainly working on that. And then on a construction update, and Erica, I don't know if David Seward said that you had the presentation. Just a quick update on the construction. 333, of course, is a wonderful building. We're having little AV problems with the 333 building, but we'll figure it out. The 198 building is on time, roughly, on schedule, on budget, all roughly. But we expect it to be ready for residents to move in on July 1st. And our students will be moving in by August 1st. That's the look of the building on the corner of McAllister and Hyde. You can see the two almost 3-story atrium and lobby area that'll have a cafe. And then the cutout is the 7th floor social commons, which will be available to all students. It actually has a media room that will have, I think, 3 or 4 TVs for the NCAA March Madness viewing opportunities, unless Kansas is playing, and then we won't allow that. I have to have certain principles there. Here's another shot of 198, seeing the construction. And this is
Hyde and McAllister.
Hyde and McAllister as well. You can see they have 2 cranes working on it. They're working nights and weekends to accelerate and get it done in time. That's a look from McAllister. And the elevator is a fun ride. Everybody's invited to come to campus and get a hard hat tour. So you get to wear a hard hat. We all look better with hard hats on, guaranteed. This is back on Golden Gate. Yeah. So this is the courtyard interior. They picked this blue to sort of capture the sea and the sky, as well as it's a blue that is a big part of the 333 building. And it sort of changes color as you go up in the interior. Of course, the crane will eventually be taken out. I'm hoping not to be there when that happens, because it'll give me a heart attack. This is one of the units. They're just starting to fill it out, and it'll have a stovetop and an oven. It'll have a microwave. It's fully furnished. They all have queen size beds. It's pretty tight, but I think quite comfortable. And the views from the upper floors, but the views generally are really quite spectacular and quite great. That's the schedule. And is that the last one?
How do people get a
Okay.
high floor?
Hmm?
How does
More.
somebody get a high floor versus,
You pay for it.
Yeah,
So there are 2 zones. There's the
That
nice
sounds so-
views and the really nice views. And the really nice views cost a little bit.
What's the rent?
Oh, I
What's the
see.
rent? So the lowest rent I think is 1850 for a lower level efficiency. And then it goes up to something like 35 for a 2 bedroom.
Can alumni rent?
Yes, like to rent.
Pied
Let me
terre,
know.
come on.
Yeah, well, we want to fill it up, so
Here's the,
we'll take it. Yeah, there's the,
Oh, wow.
Is there a
Does,
capacity limit? Are you limiting? how many
so we have 655 units.
132.
We will have some units that will have a bunk, can have bunk beds,
Okay.
but generally they're single
Wow.
occupancy.
Okay, got
And
it.
they're, yeah, and they're pretty small, so if you're gonna do a bunk bed, you wanna make sure you do it with somebody you like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
the building gonna have a name?
yes, it's called the Academe at 198.
But I
Yeah,
think
they
you
can
mean
see it,
a
Academe at
a donor
198.
name.
Yeah, is it Mr.
Oh,
Academe
yeah.
or?
Oh, no, that's the residential
Okay.
structure, but the building itself, could,
Could be the
easily
Davidi law.
The
building,
VD
yeah.
law,
Oh.
right.
Go
yeah.
for it, Davidi.
We'll
like
talk.
that.
Our
Good
current
call, I
ask
like
is
that.
20
I
million.
think I have 100
John,
bucks.
John, John,
About
20
4 more
million,
zeros for
but
that.
you can do 20 million over 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Just
Maybe
wanted
you do
to
it
let
over
you know.
500 then.
All right, and then finally, we of course once we open up 198, we will empty out completely the 100 tower. As you all will recall, we received $90 million from the state to begin the renovation of the tower. We've decided to do a phase one, starting to pay down that 90 million. We'll be clearing out the Great Hall, which is the old Methodist church. So turning that into a shell to eventually be developed. And then we'll be changing all the windows. It's a historic facade. And so all the windows, and this is just bureaucracy. We have to change them all with wood windows, even at 26 stories. You have to have wood windows, which are much more expensive. Not, you have these high winds and they're really not that resistant to weather either, but it's the California Historic Administration, whatever their name is. Yeah, so they're quite adamant about keeping, and it's a beautiful, iconic building built in 1929. I love the building and I want to, keep its sort of historical power, but I think when you get above 4 or 5 flights, the fact that it's, they do these windows now that look like wood and a much better insulation than the others. So it's all very exciting. We do anticipate that we will be out of 100 totally by December 2023, and then the real work will begin on the tower in 2024. It's already totally entitled, so it's gone through all the CEQA review. So we're able to go. And then we do have an option agreement on the backside building. It's 27,000 foot footprint owned by Local 2. And we're now going through the CEQA process for that, environmental quality. And the question there is whether the programming, we're looking at possibly workforce housing. Again, this is very preliminary, but we're having conversations with San Francisco Unified School District about workforce housing for staff and teachers of K through 12, that they could join our academic village, even though they're K through 12, but they have advantages of being part of a greater academic community. And one thing that is certainly needed in San Francisco, so there's many cities, is housing for middle income, school teachers and staff. And if we could add, so just in terms of numbers, first of all, we have not displaced one resident of the Tenderloin in all this building. We will go from having about 270 residents in the tower to 655 plus in 198, another 280 in the tower when it's redone, and possibly another 300 to 500 in Local 2. So we will go from having around 270 residents on campus just on that square block to as many as 1,400. It will help energize the neighborhood. It will help, put eyes on the street. And again, it's a challenging neighborhood, but it's one that, without quote gentrification, I think that we can make a real dent in sort of the living quality of being in there for the residents. There are a lot of families, a lot of children, very diverse neighborhood. And it's one that we are open to and want to work with. So that's my report. Happy to answer any questions.
I have two
two quick well, I don't know,
Yeah.
they're quick, but two questions. One is, maybe I missed that, for 198, is it available and open to non-Hastings students? So members of the public, I mean, I know you were asking for alumni, so,
So it's open to students or staff or faculty, but primarily students
Okay.
of UC Law, UCSF. But we have had conversations with San Francisco State graduate students,
okay,
Berkeley graduate students, and the University Pacific Dental School, which are also graduate students. So it'd be mainly a graduate student housing. But if you're a student and especially a graduate student in any Bay Area university, you can stay
you're
there.
eligible for that,
You're eligible,
okay.
right.
The second question I had goes back to the bar passage and the insights you gave on the students or the population that were most vulnerable for not passing.
Right.
Obviously, COVID, I know we're better, we've made progress, but we're not out of COVID completely.
Right.
And mental health, mental illness is a huge thing for, I think, pretty much everybody, but I would imagine some of these students also. I was just curious to know, like, if you can share a little bit about what we're doing. One,
Yeah.
to help the students who didn't pass and have to take it again.
Right.
And two, those who are perhaps in this year who are getting ready to take it. And then I would say, what can this, board do to help support in that?
Right.
Because as someone, it's interesting you were saying, when you took the bar, the idea of like not passing it didn't come to mind.
Right.
And I remember myself leaving Hastings, I was like, I'm only taking this bar once, right? Like not taking it twice.
Yeah.
But I was also fortunate. I took advantage of every opportunity that came to me. I also was in the middle of COVID, right? So
Right.
it was a different time. So I'm asking that just to know, if you can
Yeah,
share a little
that's
bit of what
great.
we're doing
Yeah.
and what can we do to help?
So we are supporting the students who did not pass in July, and I put up some of my dean's priority money, which has been a great resource to make sure that they had access to both multi-state, multiple choice prep, as well as more general bar prep. So Barbary and Themis don't necessarily offer you the ability to do it again, so we're paying for it. One of the biggest problems for any student who doesn't pass is that they actually don't finish the bar review studies. And so these days, because everything is online, Themis and Barbary are able to monitor your progress. So if I sit down and I'm supposed to do X amount in contracts, but I do X minus Y, then they know. And what we have found is that I think if you finished over 90%, you had like a 98% chance of passing the bar exam. And people that finished less than 60% had a much lower chance of passing the bar. The other challenges, just to share it with you, are the disability resource program. We try to be as accommodating as we can when folks have physical or mental or any other challenges. But the bar is not as accommodating. And so one of the problems that we've run into, in fact, there's a letter that just went to the bar from all the deans of the California law schools, is that students will be accommodated at UC Law, but they won't be accommodated on the bar. And that is a great challenge for them. And then, quite frankly, if you're in the bottom, if you're a good test taker, you're a good test taker. And so the students that find themselves in the bottom 15 to 20%, but definitely in the lower 10%, they have a greater challenge passing the exam. Again, doesn't mean they're not going to be great lawyers. They could be fantastic lawyers, but they are not great test takers, and especially not great standardized test takers. And so that's a group that we're working very hard, more in the first 3 years of law school, because if you're going to get up to speed on, the MBA is a hard multiple choice exam. To really do well on it, you need to practice it a lot. So we're doing that as well. And then we have also asked professors, especially bar exam professors, to introduce multi-state level multiple choice into some of their testing so that you get more experience doing that. But it's a challenging world. The bar is changing. The National Conference of Bar Examiners has announced that they're changing the bar exam. They're going to reduce the number of subjects. There's going to be more essay writing and more practice-oriented questions, which is a good thing on average, but it'll change the way we prepare people for the bar. California has not yet announced how they're going to go forward. They had a blue ribbon commission that had no deans on it, so they're just going to go their own way. They're not big fans, I guess, of us deans. But California, we don't know if California is going to adopt the National Conference of Bar Examiners approach to it. I will tell you, I was involved in a study. If we have a minute or two, I, of course, have been a critic of the California bar and the bar exam more generally, and I wrote an LA Times op-ed some years ago, and the chair of the Nevada Bar Commission called me up, and he teaches a class at Berkeley. His name is Rick Trachuk, and he said, I read your LA Times op-ed, and I couldn't disagree with you more. I think the exam, I'm chair of the Nevada Bar Commission, so of course, I believe in it. He didn't say it that way. And I said, well, why do you think it works? What's your proof for that? And he said, well, if you look at least at UNLV, the students who are in the top half, just 3/4 of the class, all do really well in the exam. So obviously the exam is effective. And I said, well, how they did in law school. Having an exam that predicts success in law school seems to be me a little bit backwards. And he said, well, what would you do? And he actually came to visit, and we sat in my conference room. And I said, well, what you want to do is look to see how, if you're going to test the test, you want to see how they did on the exam. You want to see how their supervisors rate them as practicing attorneys in their first 5 years, because the exam is built to establish minimum competency, and minimum competency is going to be evaluated by your supervisors in your first 3 to 5 years. And I said, then you can look to see if those evaluations, are associated with how you did on different parts of the bar exam. I said, but of course you can't get that information. And he said, well, yeah, we can actually, because I'm the Nevada Bar Commission. And so we went to the Nevada Supreme Court. I met with the Nevada Supreme Court, and we got their permission. And we went out and did that study, which was just finished this past December. We're going to be sending out to be published in a peer-reviewed journal. And what we found was that there was no association between the bar exam and evaluations of beginning attorneys. There was a very slight correlation between actually the MBE, multiple choice, and how they were being evaluated, but it was less than 6% of the variance. So it was statistically significant, but it was practically insignificant. And so the question is, if you're going to evaluate, if you're going to create a test, and it's highly discriminatory. This year, the Black candidates who took the California bar had a 48% pass rate. White candidates had an 84% pass rate. There's something going on, and you have a test that has disparate impact at that level that has never been validated for the purpose for its purpose. And we now have data that indicate that in fact it's not accomplishing that. So more needs to be done, but we're very much in the mix.
We'll take one more question just for
Yeah.
time, because
Okay,
we
sorry.
should have a whole call about this.
I was gonna ask him, and I thought, and I'm glad you asked the question at Delme's. I was gonna ask it, and then I thought, oh, I don't know if that's what the staff panel is going to cover in part, is this. You don't have to answer this, David. My question is sort of for the group that other people may have as well. The financial support that's being given to folks who are provided, not given, to folks who haven't passed, does it include the context support that they need, not just going to mental health and those psychological support, but also financial? Because I know that the bar study scholarships, $5,000 or more, make a difference. That 2,500, the feedback is it doesn't. So it's just a context question of, is that something we should, as a board, be contemplating doing a fundraising campaign on? Charles Houston Bar Association has done that.
So when they are students, and shortly after on the mental health, I didn't respond to that fully, they have insurance through Carbon Health, which has a mental health support component to it, and that's available to them. But I agree with you, we do have some scholarship support postgraduate to support them. There are complications with that, especially if they haven't passed after their first time, because they're no longer students. And so what the school can do supporting those who are not students is a different kind of a question. So my answer to you is, I think it's really important. I agree with you that it can make a real difference. I do think that going back to what the board could do in the near term, given that completing the bar review is so important, the mentorship component, I think, can make a big difference. And I know that many of you do act as mentors to students taking the bar exam, but perhaps we need to step that up a little bit, because to the extent that there's an alum talking to somebody, a couple of times, 3 or 4 times a week, saying, how you doing on, getting through your bar studies, because, literally, I always tell students, consider it a job. Get up in the morning, have a good breakfast, sit down, work for several hours, take a break, go back to it, go to lunch, and then work until 6, 7 at night, whatever it is, and do it every day. This is your future. You don't want to have to do it again, and treat it like a job. And not enough students are doing that. And I do think mentorship could make a difference. On the money side and the financial aid, let's talk more about it, because I think that I think it could make a real difference. And it's something that, we do a little bit on the front end for when they're first taking it, when they first graduate. In the February bar, if they failed the first time, I don't really know the answer to what kind of financial support. I know we've provided support so they can take the bar review classes again at no cost to them, but we're not supporting them financially in terms of rent and food and things like that. And I think there are limits on what they can borrow at that point, because they're not students either.
So maybe we need to do that initial investment at the front end on the first time. Maybe we need to focus
Like
more
double down.
resources and have those be higher
Right,
to give them the
Yeah.
freedom to actually do the work.
right. They really
The
need to
time,
do the
so they
work.
can work it like a
Right.
job and not work a job.
And not work a job.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to also plug in, it may be some collaboration available for at least some of the student population. I know the Black Alumni Council has been working diligently on an endowment fund, and they've been doing fundraising around that since September or so. Andrew Houston has taken the lead on that. He's one of our directors. And so there was a publication that went out to all alumni, probably October or so, around that. So maybe we can recirculate that. That's only for some of the population of students, but that would be a good way for us to maybe do some cross collaboration for the financial support piece.
Great.
So
And I think, that- if I may, I'm so sorry, like, it's just 30 seconds. I think, as you mentioned, it would be good to have a conversation about this, because I think one of the things perhaps that would be helpful is to really hear the sentiments or the insights from the students themselves as to what were some of the challenges, right? Because again, people come from different backgrounds, have different responsibilities, whether it's children they're taking care of, their family, parents are taking care of. So I would be thrilled to be a part of that conversation to understand how do we think more broadly about what can help, but hearing from the students,
Yeah.
obviously we can't help every single person with everything, but I think if we can prioritize that,
And we may want to just bring initially, but I agree with you, hearing from the senior instructor would be
Yeah.
a great benefit. But Margaret Greer talks to every single student during the summer
Yeah.
and then before the February exam. And so she would also be able to,
Absolutely.
tell some, have
Every
a broader
single
view
student
of
who's
the
going to
study.
take the bar, or
Hmm.
every single student?
Yeah, they meet with every single student. There's a program over the summer that we run to help them, and then also the Barbary and Themis too. And then in law school we have Adapt-A-Bar, which is just MBE, multiple choice directed, and we offer that from the first year when they're 1Ls. So they get the advantage of multi-state, multiple choice opportunities from the day that they start at UC Law.
Great.
Thank you. Very informative.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
I will go to Eric, who's going to give us an update about the development.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So I will be quick, but also answer questions. So just to kind of frame the presentation, the past several years, we've had a ton of success with major gift fundraising, principal gift fundraising. So we've been raising more 6-figure gifts, 7-figure gifts. And as a result, our actual dollars raised been going up, up, up. On the participation side, it's kind of been steadily going down, not off of a cliff, but kind of going down a little bit every year, which isn't a trend that we're happy about. So the slides that follow kind of put it in a national perspective, and it shows that, we're not alone in that trend. And then just to share a couple initiatives that we're going to be launching, one of which I think President Diallo may talk a little bit about later in the meeting. And today is just, kind of an introduction of this initiative. And I think we still are going to kind of look at specifically how it will be implemented and what the different kind of roles of the members of the board might and could be. So I'm going to go ahead.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I was going to
yeah.
mention it, but after your presentation, but I'll just quickly
Oh, yeah.
remind everyone, we sent a couple of emails around an ad hoc committee that will be focused, for our group at least, focus on engaging with alumni who were historical contributors, but they are no longer contributing. And so we're working on a committee to look at the data around that group of folks and then determine how we can engage them as fellow alumni to get them back re-engaged from a financial perspective. So we actually have a meeting scheduled, I think in the week of February 20th is when it's going to happen. So a few of you have already reached out and said you're interested in joining that specific ad hoc committee. But if you are still interested and you have not communicated that, just let Hannah know and she'll include you on the first
glean from our new director of stewardship.
Is this a new position?
It's an existing position, but it's a vacant position now. Henry Fung was in the position and he resigned.
We
Yeah,
did.
yeah. In any event, so that's the sort of initiative that we could consider doing.
I will say, I
in-
think it's a good, like, it's not my business in
Yeah.
one sense, but as a governor, I will say, I think it's a good thing to commit to a threshold of at least, find some priorities and buckets, but there should be a metric. And most nonprofits have a metric where people are going to be touched. And a phone call, personal, is better above some dollar amount as a commitment for the team, whether you get some students involved in it or the staff.
Yeah.
So like, I would put that out there as that seems like a smart thing to do, but again.
No, that's a
I'm
great,
just
yeah.
Free advice.
And
so.
part of the initiatives that I'll outline, in essence, particularly with the foundation board, we're kind of looking to them to be extensions of our staff because we have a small staff against the number of alums that we have and what we're trying to achieve. So if we can deputize some of these initiatives, and again, I even think like a peer-to-peer call to say thank you is even much more impactful than getting a call from someone on the staff, someone who's an alum, a board.
I don't disagree with that
governor
at
or-
all.
yeah.
I do think like just in time for foster youth in San Diego, they always get the youth who benefit from the programs to call and thank every donor. So I would just say like, yes, I'm sure a lot of people here would make a call, but like, so anyway, feel free to,
Yeah.
you drive, but
Yeah, no, this getting it, if you're going down the path where we're suggesting that students might call, I mean, that's something we could also consider. It's
I
difficult.
mean, they don't have to because they're paying, but still.
Well, a lot of them are getting scholarships
Yeah.
for donors who have named scholarships. Each of them get individual annual reports about the financial performance of their endowment, and then also a thank you letter and a CV from the student. So we do implement kind of student engagement. in that
What
regard.
is the number of scholarship students?
How
How many?
80 some odd percent get some sort of financial aid.
80
Yeah.
80. Wow.
roughly in
Yeah,
that.
it's probably even higher than that with the needs base, so.
And just curiously, I mean, what is your sense of how the students would respond to doing this? Maybe not every single person having to do it, but seems to me like a reasonable
Mm.
request. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
They are law
Yeah.
students. So-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the challenge is the administrative challenge of having a staff member corral them to do it.
Yeah.
And my experience is I don't answer the phone if I don't know
Yeah.
who's calling.
Yep.
And so email for me is more effective. Text for this generation is the most effective.
Yep.
But we do,
Yep.
as Eric said, we have scholarship recipients for named scholarships right to the person who funded it to thank them. And I think that's pretty effective.
And we've also done with the foundation board handwritten notes and sent to first-time donors, for instance. Yeah.
That's a good
So we've done this sort of, certainly more we can do, just a matter of prioritizing and figuring out what's the highest impact.
Yeah.
All right, I know we're running, so I get into okay, so this is National Alumni Giving Participation from 202 to 2021. So, just under 14%, and then FY 21 just above 6%. So pretty steep and steady decline.
Dude.
And then that was all higher ed. And to be clear, this is all higher education, not just law school. And so this is public higher education now. So you can see that's even, a starker difference in terms of, 4.4% FY 21. It makes sense that private schools are going to have a higher participation rate, but anyway, trend is down. And then this also squares with what we've been experiencing. We're raising more money, but our red line is donors and the yellow line is dollars raised.
Oh, wow.
And then this is a chart that has a lot of numbers on it. So this is our overall alumni giving. So we have people who support the school who aren't alumni. So this chart looks only at alums. So FY 13 through FY 22. So the first row is the total number of alumni donors. The second one is total number of what we call solicitable alumni. We define solicitable alumni as alumni for whom we have good contact information, to the best of our knowledge. That denominator goes up every year by 350 when graduating class becomes alums. And then there's our giving percentage. So we're down to 7%. Again, we're right in the wheelhouse of a national average, but we think we can do better than that. Part of the importance of increasing participation is building a future pipeline for major gifts and planned gifts. And it's just also a nice reflection on, the sentiment that our alumni have for the school if they're giving, even if they're giving $50, $100 a year. So that second block there is donor type. And then there's a key on the bottom that defines what each of those types is. So a retained donor is someone who gave last year and gave again the current fiscal year or the next fiscal year. The second line, we call them revived. So that's someone who made a gift, but who hadn't made a gift between 2 and 5 years. Acquired, we define as they made a gift and hadn't made one in 5 or more years, or more than 5 years. And then first-time donor is literally it's their first gift that they've made to the law school. And then those add up to the total number of donors and matches above. And then we have our donor retention number, which you can see in fiscal year 15, we had kind of a anomaly. We really fell off a bit, then we bounced back. Still not sure exactly what happened that year. Could have been a leadership transition, perhaps.
It was Frank's last year.
Was it Frank's last year? Okay. And then back up to 59% last fiscal year. And then the final box down there is the percentage of type of donor. So you can see that our retained donors in FY 22, 60% of all of our donors were donors that we retained. 23% of them were ones we revived, 8 that we acquired, and then 9 that made a first-time gift. So this data is just kind of the starting point for digging in and, are there strategies that we can implement to increase our retention rate? That's probably the best opportunity. People who are actively giving. And these are the types of calls that we would want to make or the type of information we want to gather. You gave, 4 consecutive years, but then you didn't give. Why not? Did you forget? Are you mad about the name change?
I have a foundational question.
Yeah.
fiscal year 22 closed? Are we in fiscal year 23
Yes,
right now?
yeah, fiscal
Okay,
year
just making
23
sure.
started on July 1st, 2022.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Jerome?
Oh, hi everyone. Sorry for being late and not there in person as originally planned. I was just gonna ask or add to the thank you process. Back, and it may have been before Eric Doubleton's time, sometimes during our meetings, we would be expected to write 10 thank you notes to donors just during our meeting for the alumni office to send out. And that's always something I think it fell down a little bit as we just kind of raced to get more donors in the door. But I do think that's something that certainly could be revived as an activity that's worth doing, so that donors feel that outreach and participation, and we get that retention among the revived and acquired and first time up higher.
Yeah, and I think there's just, for me personally, and maybe everybody shares the sentiment, getting a card in the mail, like a handwritten note in the mail, like makes you feel really good. I mean, to your point, like somebody calls, you're probably not going to pick up the phone if you don't know the number. But if you go get your mail and you see something and it's handwritten and it's from your law school alma mater, you're going to open it. I mean, I imagine you would. And if it's a thank you for your donation, it's handwritten. Yeah, so I agree with that, Jerome. That's something that we could get back into the habit of doing on a regular basis. Yeah, Barbie?
So as we've created this new policy of charging a very nominal fee for any of the events, have we noticed a change in the data trends? Like,
think
are
we-
there new people attending? Are they first-time donors? Are they?
Yeah.
Not a huge change in the trends, but absolutely, we had a first generation event on Thursday, and about 20 alums came, and I would say 18 of them, we've never seen them before. So, and they haven't been engaged with the law school. So slowly but surely, our nominal fee is something that we put into place about a year ago, and our events are definitely picking back up. People are wanting to come and engage.
And the key point would be that it's new people.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you're an active alum and you've made a donation and you come to the event, register and pay your nominal fee, you still count. You could make 12 gifts, you're still one donor.
I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that
Yeah.
this board is really good at is the fundraising piece.
Yeah.
And by putting on more events through all of the regional clubs that we've been able to set up, hopefully we'll see the growth in that over time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to track and hopefully, yeah, we'll see some gains. Yeah.
Really quick
Adele,
question
yeah.
on to that point with the 18 out of 20 alumni who came our first engagement. Do we have a way following that event to then follow up with them? And because that's really kind of, when I say the hook, I don't mean like we're just, but that's
Okay.
that's our hook. That's
Yeah.
they're showing up. So what do we do after?
We send an email to everyone who came. So for the people that came this past Thursday, we thank them, some pictures from the event, and then we also let them know about graduate, because we did a big push at the event for students to continue mentoring and connecting with alumni. So we definitely do. And then we'll also give the list to Mario, so that way he can continue engagement with the first generation alumni to see if they could continue their efforts with this.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
And I do want to say, Delise, that we actually had an absolutely wonderful engagement because of that. The attorney at Levi, she went to Hastings, a first generation, and she gave on Giving Tuesday, and then saw an email that we sent from our office about how to connect with Mario. Got in touch with Mario and is now inviting all first generation students to be hosted at the office at Levi. So it's happening.
That is, and I think that's the key, because it's not always you get the alumni, you come to an event, oh, now donate, right? It's a matter of how do we get you back into this community and then expanding it to her community so that the students who are here first generation have access to these people. So I think it's just like growing that seed that hopefully they'll try to spread it throughout the world of whatever industry they're in. So I think that's awesome. Thank you. I'm gonna stop asking
No, this was
questions.
great.
now.
So I love to stop asking questions. We're good.
Barbara's like, stop.
No, not at all. Not at all. So any other questions for Eric?
So we'll now turn briefly to Rodolfo, who has a nominations committee update for everyone.
Sure, and I'll make mine just quick, and I'm sorry for people on Zoom, I'm in the little corner where you can't see me. But I put an update on page 11 of your packets, and the gist is, I would like people to send me contacts of individuals who could serve on the board of governors. Just send me their info, contact info, name, any information that you think would be
So many
helpful.
people for you.
Oh,
yeah.
please. And we're hoping to do it in spring. The nominations committee will meet and we'll start narrowing down who we want to invite to join the board. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you,
What about
Rodolfo.
people serving? Don't you need
What is that?
volunteers for the nominations committee?
Oh, yeah, yeah. and if you
This
wanna
is your
serve on the
chance. Make your
nominations
pitch.
committee, Yeah.
Is the alumni, because I'm now my 20, I can't believe it, my 20-year reunion is this spring, but is it just 10 and 20 or is it 5, 10? Like I can't remember. Is it every 5 years they have an event? Because that's an amazing way to get, to get new people to join the board is to.
Yeah, Meredith might want to speak to that. I know there's been some changes in that.
Sure, I'll speak louder so that way everybody can hear me on Zoom. Can y'all hear me on Zoom, Kelly? Yes, okay. We have for our spring week, we on Friday night, we rented out City Hall for an For an all alumni
Wow.
party. And for all reunion celebrators, the 3s and the 8s, they're getting a special invitation that was sent out last week. And they will be receiving medallions with the new seal on it and a ribbon with our class year. And we'll also recognize them during the program at City Hall. And then we have a reunion jazz brunch on Saturday for milestone reunions, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 55 and 60. And that will be that will happen every year for milestone years. And then we also have our Dodgers event on Dodgers versus the Giants.
Giants event.
Yeah.
Dodgers
event.
event.
Boy,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
The LA alumni, it's Dodgers, the San Francisco ones.
So
it's-
we have that event on.
Remind me which weekend it is?
It's April 10th through the 15th. And tickets are on sale and they're flying, y'all. So if you want to get involved,
Hard hat quarters.
yeah, we have hard
What's the
hat
weekend
quarters,
events?
the 14th and 15th.
Yeah, the Friday night is at City Hall. It's gonna
Yeah.
be crazy.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
We can share with you later to get on the website for it.
and the City Hall Dome will be UC blue and
Beautiful.
gold.
We've got
Nice.
Lucille coming to the Giants
Yeah.
event. It's gonna be really cool.
Awesome.
Lucille's coming to the
Lucille,
Dodgers
the
game.
Giants mascot.
Oh, okay.
Are there
I'm a
going to be
Dodger.
though?
I know.
My question is, there going to be like a, for the each milestone, the 8th, is there going to be a separate party for each one? Because, and could I make that happen?
If you want to make that happen, we'll be more than
With all my
happy to work with you.
Yeah.
But I think that that would be an amazing way to get donors, to get people interested in the board, because it's been 20 years or 25 years or 30 years. You're pretty far out.
Let's chat.
Is there
I'll be more
anything-
than happy to help.
I think that my year would be totally into it, but we just need, we'll talk. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Rodolfo. And if you're interested in being on the nominations committee, please let Rodolfo know because he'll need all of your support. So now I'm going to turn to Jack Grimm, who's our ASUG president and our student rep for today. So Jack, we'll turn to you.
Thank you, Professor Diallo. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm really briefly going to provide a few updates on things going on campus this year. A few key points. First off, ASUG has a new name. So last week we voted to change our name from the Associated Students of UC Hastings to the University of California Law Students Association, or Associated Students, pardon me. So we're going from ASUG to UClass. So we've got a new name going on. We're excited about it and still in the process of implementing it, but excited to have that new name more aligned with the new school name. On January 14th, we hosted a Barristers Ball for the first time in 3 years. It was a great success. We had about 700 attendees, so students and their guests. It was really, really fun at the Julia Morgan Ballroom. Student activities have really picked up this semester. We have about, I think over 50 active student orgs on campus. This year, UClass provided $45,000 of funding for different student org events, the social events and networking events and alternative graduations. In terms of professional development, we'll be once again holding professional headshot days in early March. We held this event last semester and it was a really big success. We're also continuing to hold our 6 at 6 events with attorneys throughout California. On behalf of our external vice president, Meera Balasubramanian, who's the driving force behind these events, I want to thank the members of the board who have already spent time with our students in the form of 6 at 6 events, panels, and other mixers. We have more 6 at 6s lined up this month in San Francisco and in other cities like San Diego. So we are expanding our footprint a little bit, and we're really excited about that. And we hope to continue. We hope you continue to share your time and advice with us. If any of you would be interested in hosting a 6 at 6 event or are familiar with other alumni who you think might be interested, please feel free to reach out to us. I'll put Mira's email address in the chat on Zoom. We're always hoping to get in touch with a wider net of attorneys, different types of attorneys across California who are connected to the school. We are still hoping to hold Sharks on the Quad, which is the event formerly known as Beer on the Beach, and invite members of the 3 boards and the Bay Area alumni chapters on March 2nd. We're still in the process of figuring out the logistics of that. So we will let you know as soon as possible if we're able to move forward with that event. We would certainly love to see you and connect you with more students on campus. Regarding the name change, my last point, I think there continues to be some anxiety among the student body about the loss of name recognition. So to that point, I think right now is a really critical time where I think students could really benefit from support from alumni. Just knowing that we're still a big, strong team, even though the name has changed, that we're still the same strong community, I think is be really critical, both for student success and then also for future giving to the university if people feel like they're supported at this moment of change. And so with that, I will conclude and thank you so much. And please reach out if you have any questions for me.
Great report.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jack. And I know some, sorry.
Yes.
I know some alumni have done it together, like they work together to host students. So if any of you want to do it as a team, then I think they'll welcome that as well. Okay, thanks so much, Jack. And so now we have our last, but not least, item for today. We're going to hear from multiple individuals from our staff who are going to give us further insight into all the work they're doing to support our students, and there will be an opportunity for interactive Q&A, and I think it might just be helpful as a natural flow when each presenter provides kind of a summary of what they're doing. You could ask them questions individually and then follow up with any questions as well. So this will kind of help conclude our meeting today. So just to let you know who is on the panel, and when I call your name, that's kind of the order you'll present. So first we have Morris Ratner, who many of you know is our provost and academic dean. We have Gabriel Bellman, who's also an 05 graduate, who's director of graduate advising. Emily Hahn. Hi, Emily. I didn't see you at first, but I think I see you there. She's director of student services. And Mario Lopez, also class of 15, who's our director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we'll start with Morris. You're going to give kind of a high level introduction for everyone and let them know what you're working on, and we'll have some questions for you.
Great, thank you so much. Not exactly sure how much detail to go into, but I'm Morris Ratner. I'm the academic dean and a professor of law, and my responsibility is fairly broad to administer the academic program. So as far as an update goes, I thought I would just share some information that may be of interest to members of the boards. And so I'm going to show 2 different things. The first thing I wanted to share, I don't know if this document was previously circulated, but it's something I can drop into chat if you don't already have it. It's just a list of different ways that members of the boards can engage with the academic program. They include attending campus events, serving as alumni mentors with the Legal Education Opportunity Program or a first generation program, providing career mentorship, serving on career panels, serving as bar mentors for graduates each year, who are looking for, from alumni, mostly just support and on an emotional level, not actually bar instruction, participating in student government programming, getting involved in some of our research and programmatic centers, serving as judges on our competition teams, like our #1 ranked moot court or our trial teams. And if you're interested in teaching, actually reaching out to me and talking about the potential for teaching classes, some of our best adjunct professors are Hastings alumni. And so that's always a great way to engage. In terms of what's happening on campus, let me share one other document. So we're implementing our strategic plan as we go forward. The plan was adopted by the Board of Directors in March 2020, and it includes 5 main sections. The #1 goal of our strategic plan is student development and fulfillment, to ensure that our students get a quality education as measured in part by their bar passage rates and employment. The other core element of our mission besides teaching is research. And so one key plank of our strategic plan is scholarly production and impact. And of course, we have a top-ranked scholarly community that's continuously engaged in that. Development of the academic village in our long-range campus plan is another core goal of the strategic plan. A 4th goal is what we called in the plan community cohesion. It includes some of the things that Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Initiatives, Mario Lopez, will talk about, some of our initiatives college-wide, but there are also initiatives in the academic program. And fiscal health and organizational capacity were key elements of the plan. Dean Fagman has articulated a growth vision of excellence for the law school. We're really trying to grow our capacity to, including by raising funds from third parties for sponsored research, expanding our non-JD degree programs, developing institutional partnerships and the like. And so we've been busy the last few years doing all of these things. And I'll just give a couple of examples before I pass the baton on to the next speaker. And we'll save some of the slides in this deck for Q&A if there are questions. But here are just a few examples of some of the exciting things happening in the academic program. Since 2016, we've really revamped the way we teach, which explains the 30+ percentage point increase since 2016 in our bar pass rates in a sustained way over the last several years. And part of that is the development of programs that teach core legal analysis skills explicitly and pervasively. Separate and apart from just bar success initiatives, we've been really attentive to the way practice is changing and to the knowledge and skills lawyers need in practice. So we've developed a whole array of new courses that help us ensure that our graduates have every opportunity to get the education they need to find rewarding jobs and to be skilled upon graduation. Some of the fun examples of things we've done recently are to develop a corporate counsel externship program where we place our students in general counsel's offices in corporations. We have a whole new suite of privacy classes. We've developed a whole new technology curriculum, and we've really expanded our racial justice curriculum. We have about a dozen concentrations, so students can graduate as generalists or be specialists. Some of our newer concentrations that we've added in recent years include a concentration on technology and innovation in law practice, and an environmental law concentration, and what we call work law, which is basically our employment and labor concentration. As you may have heard, the California bar exam is changing in the next few years. It will be following changes to the multi-state bar exam used in the majority of the states. And essentially, the bar will rely less on testing memorization skills and more on testing lawyering skills In the short term, that means we have to think deeply about what we're teaching and how we're testing our students. But in the long run, I think we'll see a closer alignment between what our students need to learn and be able to demonstrate on the bar exam and what they actually need in practice. So I think on balance, these are good developments. We've hired a whole slate of new faculty members. Just in the last year, we've hired 4, and I just thought I'd briefly mention them. But our research faculty are really both our top teaching faculty and our top scholars. And Hiro Aragaki is our new faculty director of the Center for Negotiation and Dispute Resolution. Ming Chen is a race and immigration scholar who established the new Center on Race, Immigration, Citizenship, and Equality. Talia Gonzalez is a restorative justice expert who joined our faculty starting this year. And Jenna Leva is a top health law scholar who is now embedded in our UCSF UC Law Consortium and teaching health and other classes. And in the last few years, as part of our strategic plan, and consistent with this growth model of excellence that I talked about, we've developed a slate of new programmatic and research centers that are really meant to connect our top scholars, our curriculum, alumni, scholars at peer schools, and just the practicing community generally, and are great doorways for getting involved in Hastings and hopefully at UC Law, and hopefully attracting some of our alumni back who may be interested in some of these subjects. And this is a list of the centers that have been established just in the last few years at UC Law that are associated with programs that are open to alumni and all sorts of research and programmatic activity. And as Jack mentioned, campus life is really active post the worst parts of the pandemic. Here's just an example of a few events that have happened on campus just in the last week or 2 weeks. UC Law professor Joel Paul gave a talk about his new book that he just published about the birth of American nationalism. Our flagship student journal, Hastings Law Journal, the name of which will change starting July 1 to the UC Law Journal, just had an all-day conference on religious freedom. We have a number of faculty who are hosting semester-long colloquia that bring in thought leaders on various subjects, including what I posted here from Rice, or on the left-hand side of the screen, or on the right-hand side, an event that's part of a series being put on primarily aimed at practitioners for relating to negotiation and dispute resolution. And of course, our top scholars regularly give lectures, including chair lectures like the one we just had last week from Dave Owen, who's one of our environmental law scholars. So I think I'll stop there and pass the baton, but I'm available to answer questions and share more information if there's interest.
So I believe I'm up next. Is that the correct order? So greetings, everyone. I'm Gabriel Bellman here, Director of Graduate Advising, Class of 05. I know many of you worked with you on the board before, either through the mentor program or through personal relationships. So great to see you. Just a little bit of a snapshot, I guess, of what our office is doing recently. The big thing is next weekend is a public interest public service day. And we'll be hosting, thousands of interviews. Hastings students, UC Law SF, received the most interviews by far of any other law school. And there was some concern because it had transferred more to a remote interviewing, that the loss of PIPSD from campus would result in potentially like some of our home court advantage falling aside. And that's just not true based on the numbers. So that was kind of a relief to see. And we've been hosting, many events on campus and in person and through Zoom. And just over the last few weeks, for example, we've had panels on how to get your materials for students best interview, prepping for resume cover letters. We had a private sector and a public sector version. I did the Q&A with the public sector one where we had folks from the SF Public Defender's Office, East Bay Community Legal Aid, and the department and the DOJ. We had a speaker from Amazon in-house come talk to students about their grades, about how they're still, you can still get a job if you don't perform like you wanted to your first semester in law school this week. We had an event with Airbnb and with LEOP last week as well. So we're always doing events, always looking to do more, and I'm thankful for all of the help from many of the people here today. For our grads, I think that's my area of expertise as well, is that the bar exam is February 21st, 22nd. So at this point, only a few, only around 10 grads that I'm working with who passed the bar that are looking. The rest of the grads who are still seeking employment are studying for the February bar, and they're hunkered down at the moment. They continue to receive weekly emails from me with hot jobs that I and Alfred and Daryl Alforte from our office all kind of go through and pick the ones that we think would be in their best interest to apply for out of all the ones that are posted. And I send them a little kind of weekly update of things for their career, things that'd be good for them, whether they have a job or not. And those are things that I curate and kind of seek to find more based on any current research and recent So we're continually trying to learn and find out best ways to connect with our grads and our students. Recently listening to a model about the generational differences between Gen Z versus Gen Y, and learning a little bit about the different types of analysis. That this is a generation that tends to look more of an economic model and be less likely to speak up and reach out because they're more coming from a framework of likes and dislikes, and they're feeling judged maybe a little bit more. So I think the feedback that I've been getting is really positive, but there's you have to solicit it. I guess there can be so I think the assumption it can be that they're not engaged when in fact they could be very much engaged, but reluctant to reach out and share that they're engaged. And so we've been learning more information about that. I think encouraged by the feedback we've been getting from grads, particularly getting a ton of positive feedback, and they seem to be extremely grateful for their efforts. And it's not always the case. And so you never know with each class kind of the expectations and general attitudes, but this seems to be, at least the last year's graduation class seems to have a really positive relationship with our office and towards the school. And so that's always nice to see. And so broadly speaking, I mean, some of the other things we're doing, the Bridge Fellowship program that we connect grads to, we did the interviews and awarded funding in January for that. And they'll be starting their year-long placements after the February bar exam for those who are taking the bar, or they'll be starting this week for those who passed. And we had around 10 applicants that are placed in all kinds of sectors, including clerkships, DAPD's offices, and nonprofit work. We have our resume books for folks that we can hand out. We've had a number of people get hired directly, and we try to keep that up to date for folks who are looking for employment. We tell them to give us their, up-to-date resumes and if they're available for work. And I've had good success. A couple of friends of mine from law school actually have been in the habit now in the last 2 years of just texting me, hey, you got anybody for me? And I just send them over the link and it's perfect. I don't even find out necessarily about it until later that they got hired that way. So that's been a welcome success, and it seems to be, part of our Jumpstart program. So I guess I'll pass it along as well, but I'm open for any questions, and I'm grateful for all of your energy and attention to all of our grads and students.
So Gabriel, I do have a question about that. There's, as a mediator, I'm constantly, people are like, oh, I saw you're on the board for, now UCY, SF, and they ask, how can we recruit Hastings students, but I don't want to do the on-campus interviewing thing. So we should just send them to you. Is that what we should
Absolutely,
do?
yeah. So, yeah,
Okay.
great question. Great question. Any email to me or any of the counselors in our office will end up with the correct chain of events. But the shorter answer is that there's both a job board that they can post directly to. We can also craft that for them and work with them so that they can get the candidates info in the best way. Sometimes they want resumes sent directly to them. Sometimes we can create an account that the resumes will all go there. And then when a certain period of time is ended, we can then send all the materials to them from there. We can also reach out and send stuff directly to grads in emails and targeted exchanges. So if we know you're looking for someone who recently passed the bar, who's interested in employment law, for example, I know there's a handful of people who match that description, and I'll just send them an email. Hey, here's a posting we just got. And then, I'll know usually within an hour, they'll either reply back right away, like, great, I'll apply right now. Or, actually I found something last week. I forgot to let you know. And so it's really great. It keeps us involved and up to date on all the grads on what they're doing. So definitely encourage them to reach out directly. And then we can also give them the information. So if they want to post it themselves and have control, that there's a way that they could post to our job board directly and we wouldn't have to be involved with it. But we like to help walk them through that at least the first time.
I have a question that might affect what you were saying, Gabriel, and then a few of the other talks about development and rebranding. And the student representative also talked about this being a hard time to look for a job with the rebranding exercise. So with only 800,000 of like a $2.8 million request being funded in rebranding, what would Hastings do if it had another 500,000 or million? Is it likely to get the additional money? And what would Gabriel say? What would the students say? What would you all say is the thing that should be happening if the additional money were there that's not happening now or is happening?
Well, the first thing is putting the name on the building. So that's just a physical cost. And that's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 1.2 million.
Wow.
Around the
I wouldn't
college.
think that would be the number one thing that, I realize like from one tactical perspective, but for getting people jobs and.
Right, but we can do a lot of those other things at very low cost. So we have a 3-person communications group. So we can send out emails, we can send out blasts, we can change the website, we can drive traffic, we can do Google ads that are not terribly expensive. So there's a lot of getting the word out. I sent a long explanation of the name change to the Dean's listserv. And when I went to San Diego for the American Association of Law Schools conference, met with deans, introduced myself, or talked about UC Law San Francisco, formerly Hastings. So every dean in the country is quite well aware of it, and getting employers to know. Amy Kimmel, the dean of the Career Development Office, has sent out a 1-pager to all the employers that we work with, letting them know. And again, you need to repeat it. Nobody hears anything the first time you hear it. At least that was my experience with my students when I was a professor. But you just have to, say things 2, 3, 4, or 5 times. And so we can get the word out, 1, 2, 3 times, but we just have to keep on blasting it. There are, publications like the Recorder, the Daily Journal, California Lawyer. So just getting it out there. So that's the kind of communication strategy we've been talking about.
This is probably a really
Yeah.
dumb question, but I actually ran into this just last week. What is the advised and proper way now on a bio or a resume?
So I just changed my
So for
CV.
your-
It's
So for,
University of California College of the Law, San Francisco, formerly UC Hastings Law.
and then you put formerly UC Hastings Law in paren? Or
Yes.
in paren?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you say formally, not FK. I was gonna go with the exact same question, Carol, because I want to get the
Oh.
word out to people.
Right.
But so say formally.
And I
Is that in an
cannot
email blast
tell
already?
you the back and forth that I went through with them adding Board of Governors because of the comma problem.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's a weird,
Right.
arcane thing, but
Yeah, I think you, when we were deciding on the
Yeah.
law journals, we don't want law.
Yeah.
So it's UC Law San Francisco Journal for the Hastings Law, formerly the Hastings Law Journal. The Hastings Constitutional Law Quarterly is now the UC
law SF constitutional quarterly.
Okay,
So the law has been taken out of the second half of it, but we can talk to you about,
okay.
details. The trustees have already voted on a new name, UC Law SF, Board of Foundation Board. So, yeah, so there are things we can work with you on. Again, you learn as you go along. We don't have all the answers. I was talking to a federal district court judge in Portland that we invited down for a conference, and I had sent him an email originally, and then he said, call me and let's talk. And I put my new name, but I hadn't put formally. And so when I was talking to him, he said, well, he said, how close are you guys to Hastings? It looks like you're right on top of them in the city. And I said, well, we are formally Hastings. So now when I send my email to people that I don't correspond with regularly, I actually add the formally UC Hastings for the time being. So I do think it's good to connect the two up, but I think the word's getting around.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Gabriel.
I was gonna say, yeah, in terms of, I mean, I think this, it's pretty easy for the students, right? I think they get it right away. And the concern which is raised is they want to make sure that the association is there, that people realize what school we're talking about. And to David's point too, I think it's I mean, this has happened enough times now, whether we look at Berkeley, whether we look at, Washington football team, it's one of the things, it doesn't happen right away, but within a few years, it seems to be people understand what you're talking about when there's a major name change. So I do think it's gonna be a few years, my personal opinion, before people start to lose the Hastings name entirely. And it may be for some people that they don't lose it entirely, and they might just say, oh, UCLSF Hastings, and they might use it as and just like they do with the Washington football team still as well. And our concern is, yeah,
sorry.
I was gonna say, there's also, it's not the only school that's having that. We actually have a transfer student who I met with last week, who their other law school just changed their name this semester too. It was formerly the John Marshall School of Law, and they changed it to Cleveland. So, and their resume actually has two formerly known as on the same resume. So, and it's and I think that's probably one of the only students in the country who has that exact issues. But it's happening enough that there's enough, I think, fluency in it, that once you clarify it, and I think that can be done really quickly, and it won't take too many times, I think, right, for employers, once they do a couple resumes, a couple cycles of hiring, I think it'll become, natural.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay, you have one more question, then we want to get to, we have Emily and Mario. Where do you want to give us some time? So, and I didn't see a question.
It's to that point, to Ron's question, and for the students, are there workshops or resources providing to them so that when they are speaking with an employer, how they can sort of make that connection, explain? Because again, I'm always thinking of the perspective of the student, right? We can do the dean and the employers, but if you're sitting in front of you interviewing me, the employer's like, well, what do you think about Hastings, UC Law? I didn't hear about it. And how are we equipping the students to speak to that and make that connection so that they come out of the interview? Again, you don't have to answer it now, but I think it's ties to those two questions.
But no, it's a good question. And in fact, we do that with all of our students when we're doing, prepping for interviews, and when we're talking about their narratives and prepping them for how they're going to tell their story. And how they're going to talk about a name change is going to be personal for each student, right? For some people, there'll be a meaningful story behind it. For other people, it'll be more of a administrative point. And I think, so making sure that they're true to themselves, and that they feel like their authentic voice comes across, while still getting guidance from us on things that could potentially be red flag raising, or might land on certain employers differently, right? And so it's part of it is just knowing your audience, and knowing that, how you speak about things is going to land differently within different things, but it's going to be their opinion, how they talk about, their experience. We'll give them guidance, and that always starts with kind of their own personal story. And then, I'll share how that sounds in my experience to people sitting in situations where I can predict based upon my conversations how they'll react. But we don't always know how everybody will react. And this is I mean, name changes are different. People have different opinions about them, and they're very strongly held opinions. And so our goal is always to connect the student to their most authentic voice in a professional setting.
Thank you so much. Okay, Emily, I know you have to share with us about student services and what's going on there. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Hahn. I'm the Director of Student Services. So our office is really focused on, and for those of you who aren't familiar with it, sort of inclusion and the life cycle of a student while they're at Hastings. So, unlike Gabriel, we don't really get involved in careers and employers. We're really focused on our students' time while they're students at Hastings. And so we've been doing a lot of community engagement events. We oversee all of our student orgs. Our Associate Director of Student Life and Inclusion, Miguel Zavala, manages, I think we have 60 or 70 student orgs at this point. And so in any given week, we have 2 to 8 student org events that we support and manage and provide resources for. And we really work on connecting with our student leaders and providing training for them so that they can plan the events that they want to have and engage the community themselves. So we're trying to build to a model where we're giving our student leaders the tools to build community for their classmates. We also provide a lot of wellness support. So one of our biggest initiatives over the last few years has been our pantry, which is a resource to support students experiencing food insecurity. We have a fairly large portion of our students who are regularly having trouble sustaining their basic food needs. And so we have in our office, we have a pantry that's full of sort of staple foods, canned goods, pasta, rice, things that they can take home to cook for themselves, as well as we get fresh fruit and vegetable deliveries every week for our students. And then we also provide actual gift card and cash support for students who need a little extra. That's been a hugely successful initiative that I think has made a huge difference in the sort of well-being of a lot of our students. We also are focusing heavily on how to improve the organizational skills of our students right now. So in the course of our academic advising and working with students, we are noticing that a lot of the students who are coming in the recent classes are lacking sort of the tools to be able to organize their email inboxes and calendaring and sort of just keeping track of their day-to-day lives to stay on top of their schedules. And that's impacting them in a variety of ways, including in their classes. So we have been brainstorming various ways to provide additional support for those types of skills. And we're going to be actually implementing for the first time an organizational time management training at orientation this year for the incoming students. And then the last thing that we're working on right now is implementing a new series of diversity, equity, and inclusion training that will start at orientation for our incoming students. We're working on a really exciting partnership to develop a robust training for our incoming students, as well as to put together some modules for our upper division students. So it's still in the works, so I don't have too much to share at this point, but I'm really excited about what that's going to look like and how it's going to create more robust DEI programming for our students.
Thanks so much, Emily. Any questions for Emily?
Just a quick one. Is this pantry available to students who are prepping for the bar? So both those prepping for the July bar and the February bar?
Yes, I think you asked if the pantry is, I'm sorry, the sound is not great, but if the pantry is available to students prepping for the bar.
Yeah, the pantry.
Yeah, so it's available to any students or anyone who has access to campus, who's a student. So yes, certainly our students who are studying for the July bar, who are regularly studying on campus, have access to the pantry. We also, for our bar studiers, do provide additional weekly snacks and other sort of support for them as well. But yes, it is it's available while our during the hours that our office is open.
Thank you. I think Mario, you're the last speaker.
Hi, everybody. I have to change computers right now. I have a PowerPoint. If you could just give me one moment, I have to switch over computers and I just have to send my PowerPoint over. Just one moment, please.
Sure.
While we're waiting, I'd like to ask Emily a question.
Yes.
This sort of issue that incoming students seem to have with scheduling and staying on top of things organizationally. Is that across the board that we're seeing this issue? I mean, to what do we attribute this issue of sort of self-management being a problem? Because that's going to be a problem in the workplace too, if they don't leave with those skills.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. I think it's one that we're grappling with across the college. I do think it is sort of across the board, and I think it's generational. I think that students just aren't getting as much support in undergrad and even in the later years of high school. They're also just they're not using the tools that we're still using, right? So email, for example, is something that we are all still using and that we rely on, right? And I have my own, for example, system of flagging and marking my email. This generation of students, they don't use email. You know, they're texting and they're using DMs and social media apps. They're just not using email in the same way. So they haven't developed the skills to be able to manage an email inbox. We have heard anecdotally that, you know, it is making its way into the workplace as well, which is why we're trying to sort of catch it early on. We're also just noticing that students really don't know how to sort of digest a large amount of organizational information. So if they have, you know, 20 emails and 5 of them have deadlines that they have to calendar, that like they're missing that, right? They're not able to like sort of scan through and figure out how to prioritize. I'm on a listserv of other student affairs professionals nationally, and it's not just us, it's not just UC Law, it's across the board that we're noticing this shift in sort of not being able to manage these organizational tools that we're used to. I do think that probably at some point there will be a shift in the way we're using the tools, but right now we're sort of in this awkward place, I think.
I'm just wondering how they graduate from undergrad, you know, in terms of getting work in timely across multiple classes. Like, I'm trying to figure out how they get to Hastings and they'll UC Law SF in the first instance.
I think it's a good question. And I think that it sort of depends on where they're coming from, but I'll tell you that, like, for example, I had a student a few weeks ago who came from a really small liberal arts college who told me that she didn't feel like she got enough. I mean, and she used this word hand-holding at Hastings or at UC Law SF because when she was an undergrad, her advisor and mentor was willing to meet with her, you know, multiple times a week to go over how to, you know, manage her schedule. And she sort of expected the same thing here. And so there is this disconnect between like what's actually happening in undergrad and like what the expectations are professionally.
I can echo that from the CDO office as well. Like we see that, and those are some of the conversations that we're having as well. Like many of the students who haven't worked either because of the pandemic and because of, you know, coming straight through are coming in with even less of those kind of experiences where they may have gotten direct feedback like, hey, you can't do this at work. And so we're having to have some conversations. And also to Emily's point, like those are like challenging ones because they're coming in with an expectation level of how education is a model of really more parallel and less like hierarchical, like where we teach them, but more like they teach us kind of what they're looking for and we kind of help guide them there. That's a major shift, right? That's not our relationship to education. Was we came to learn for the most part and not to teach our educators how they needed to adapt to us. And so I think we're all dealing with that. It's across the board. It's professors, it's, you know, CDOs, student services. And I think, I think we're in good hands, like working with Emily on project with her. I think our offices work together a lot to try to understand the best ways to support our students and not just to be like yelling at the clouds like this. In my day, this is not how we did it, because we do need to meet them where they are, because it's this is not like one student. This is the vast majority of students, really.
Now, this is truly cutting edge change management, with this new generation. So thank you both for all that you're doing to help navigate this interesting and difficult topic. So I know, Mario, you look like you're back. Are you ready now?
Yes, thank you so much, President Diallo, and sorry for the technical difficulties. I will say thank you for having two computers here with me. That saved me right now. But with that, I also want to say, as a fellow member of the Board of Governors, I'm so sorry I could not be there in person, but I'm definitely looking forward to our next in-person meeting. With that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Provided just a short presentation for everyone today. Go ahead and share it here. All right, thank you. So once again, my name is Mario Ernesto Lopez. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives at the college, also class of 2015, and a member of the Board of Governors. So first, I just want to start off by saying thank you to our alumni department and to our governors. These are pictures from this past Thursday's first ever first generation program mixer with alums. This was the first time that we had an event with alums where we invited our students to get to know our alums. And it was also our first event with the alumni office. So huge thanks to you, the Board of Governors. In fact, we had Governor Casarubias there. You'll see his picture right there. He also spoke at the event. Thank you, David, for that. And again, for all our alums that were able to be part of the program, the students loved it. Here's a few more pictures from the event. You'll see there. And yeah, I really look forward to continuing to engage the Board of Governors with our students. I have to tell you, I'm very thankful. We launched the first generation program a year ago this month. In fact, it was Governor Warner that kicked off the event, and also President Diallo that wrote a welcome note to our students. So in just 1 year, we've launched this program. The provost and academic dean, Morris Stratner, really laid the foundation when it came to first generation student resources. And in our year, we've been able to build it up. We have a long ways to go, but really thankful to the work of the governors. We've had Governor Alvarez, Governor Morris, like I mentioned, Governor Martinez also has helped us in our diversity outreach recruitment. So huge thanks to the Board of Governors. Now I'd like to speak about some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that are happening on the campus. First, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives is housed in the Chancellor and Dean's office. So under the direction and leadership of Chancellor and Dean Fagman, we're able to do a lot of issues that relate to DEI on campus. In the office, one of the things I want to speak to that we're currently doing is hiring our first ever campus ombuds. So when there are conflicts on campus and individuals do not want to go through the formal channels, they don't want to go through human resources, the academic dean's office, or student services, the campus ombuds is a great resource for informal conflict resolution. So we're in the interview process right now, and we're very excited about hiring our first ever campus ombuds. If you go onto our website, right now, the first article you'll see there is from our campus community DI forum. Chancellor and Dean David Fagman and I, presented a forum to the entire campus community on the work that we've done collectively as a campus on DEI issues. It was our first time doing this forum. We learned a lot. We had a lot of fun doing it too. And we look forward to continuing to engage the community on issues of DEI. And also, very importantly, telling the community, showing the community the efforts that we're doing. We have a long ways to go, but I think it's very important to continually update the community on the great work that's been done by so many on our campus. Then this March, we're going to have a workshop on our DEI departmental strategic plans. So this came during the pandemic in March of 2020, when Assistant Chancellor and Dean Jenny Kwan and LEOP Director and Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Advisor Elizabeth McGriff led on our DEI department strategic plans. So thanks to their leadership, we'll have another workshop on this, a refresher workshop when it comes to departments making sure they're doing everything they can to meet DEI needs. And lastly, and on this area, I'm very excited about this. I feel bad for our chancellor because he's in LA right now. He's going to fly back up to San Francisco, and then him and I are going to fly back down next week to Los Angeles, where our school will formally join the California Pathways Program. That is a joint venture program between the California State Legislature and the State Bar to ensure that there's a pipeline from California community colleges all the way through passing the bar for those students that want to be lawyers. So we're very excited to join the partnership. Many of the UCs are part of it. Also many private schools such as USC, you have Loyola, San Diego. So we're excited about this new partnership. Then on the first generation program, we continue with our workshops. They focus on professional development. Huge thanks to the Career Development Office. Alumni engagement, as we saw last week, and also community building. Our program really centers around creating and fostering a community of celebrating the first generation spirit. Then on the diversity, equity, and inclusion working group, currently we are working on our community principles. So these are aspirational goals that we want as a community, faculty, staff, students, where we really show what the values of our institution. And with the new name, what better way to start with these principles in August when we have new students. So we're very excited about that work. And we hope to finish with the community principles by the end of this academic year. And on the enrollment management side, because we can't have diversity on campus if we don't have first diverse students on campus, we kick off the year with our Justice for All event. This is an event geared towards diverse perspective law students, and a huge thanks to Governor Martinez, which for several years has been our faculty speaker. He actually gives a mock class, a 1 hour mock class. The students love it. It gives me a little bit of nightmares and contracts a little bit, but it's a lot of fun. And we're very thankful to him for always helping us on the event. We continue, as Chancellor and Dean David Fagan mentioned, on our HBCU recruitment efforts. This April, we will go and meet with HBCU presidents to continue to advertise and show really the benefits of the California Scholars Program. Our Central Valley outreach is very important. This is one of the largest regions of our state. We have great students there, a lot of diverse students. In fact, 75% of students in the Central Valley region are the first in their family to go to college. So it's a great win for us if we can get more students from the Central Valley. And lastly, continuing to work on, with Hispanic serving institutions throughout the state. Many of our CSU campuses are Hispanic serving institutions, and many more UC campuses are actually applying right now for Hispanic serving institution designation status. So that's a brief update on the work that we're doing in the Office of DI Initiatives, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Mario. Any questions for Mario regarding all those great initiatives?
Rachel was looking at me. I do
Rachel,
have a question. She
questions?
made me
Thanks.
nervous. But well, it's more of a comment. I think, Mario, congratulations. And first of all, like, so amazing. I think all the speakers, all the fantastic work you're doing. But since Mario, the last one, that's a lot you're tackling. And I know you don't have unlimited resources. And so I'm just curious, kind of how are you feeling, and what I'm always going to offer, like, what help this board can provide to you to support you, because that's a lot, and with the potential for have tremendous impact on the on UC Law San Francisco campus.
No, absolutely. First of all, thank you. I would say I'm the one that actually wants to say thank you to you, because when we launched this on day one, you were the first person I called, and you said yes. So
I'll always say yes to you, Mario.
I really appreciate it. And I would say for our students, they want to engage with their alums, right? They want to see that at the end of the day, through all this hard work, all the grueling hours in the library, there's a result, right? And they love hearing from you. So I think, and that's on me. I want to work with the governors and alums in general to make sure that I can get them in front of you. That at the end of the day, I think that's the biggest help and ask that I have of the governors.
if anybody wants to relive the experience, I'm more than happy to give my sample.
That'll be the next meeting, right? We're like session one.
Exam
Oh, no.
Well, thank you, everyone. I know we're right at the time. This has been such an informative and rich meeting and a lot of takeaways for us to follow up with you. And then I'm sure all the governors will be reaching out to many of you to further extend their support. So thank you, everyone. Thank you all who traveled, and the meeting is adjourned.
All right.
All right.
No nonsense. I love it. Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah. And we're done.